there are a number of things that I think are really important for you to be aware of as an investor. Number one, good morning. Welcome to Life in the Markets. My name's Tim Russell, and today is July 7th, 2025. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July weekend and has all of their fingers and toes to account for today. That's always a good thing. We've got a lot to talk about today. There's been an awful lot of information that's come out over the past 2 weeks that I think are worth having some discussion about. The first thing, however, is we've finished the first 6 months of the year. 2025, the first 6 months are in the books. What happened? Where are we now? So if you were in a coma for the last 6 months and just woke up now, you might be surprised to know we've had a new president who's pushed through a tremendous amount of executive authorizations and directives, set a lot of different things in a very new direction for our country. And that has had some very obvious and expected pushbacks. Now, that's politically. What's interesting about all of these political things is that he had a very significant win on the tax side of the ledger, which we're going to get into later in today's episode, where we talk about a little bit more from the big, beautiful bill and talk about things that may affect you or your loved ones. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's obviously a significant win from the administration, and one that, frankly, we didn't think was going to get done. It got signed into law on the 4th of July, which is very interesting imagery for its timing and the way that came to the markets. Okay, beyond that, we've had enhanced conflict in the Middle East. We've had crazy tariff tensions and global concerns about Donald Trump and the tariff impacts that he's bringing into the world right now and changing the entire discussion in our global economy. We've talked about this at length here in these videos, and one of the common themes that I think we can say is, number one, we don't like tariffs. I think tariffs are government interference with the way the market works, and we would prefer to not have that. But as a negotiating tactic and tool, they're incredibly effective. And here we are 6 months later, and we have a trade deal with China. Who had that on their bingo card? We've got a trade deal with Europe. We've got a trade deal with many other countries, and even in some cases, better trade arrangements than we had before all of this blow up with tariffs. Now, you would have thought that tariffs, and I told you, tariffs are inflationary. They will have inflationary impact on prices. And I still hold that out to be true. I still believe tariffs are not a good thing for the American economy and for our inflation as a whole. And yet, here we are today, lower inflation than when Donald Trump took office. The price of eggs are down, the price of gas is down, the price of many things has actually dropped in price rather than increase in price. Again, maybe I have a little egg on my face, I don't know. But the reality is, the market is going to do and inflation is going to do what it's going to do. I still think the long-term, long-run impacts of of tariffs will be inflationary. With all of this going on, we've seen one of the sharpest market drops and the most stunning market recovery that we've seen in a long time. Now, you may recall, we said the exact same thing about COVID, right? When we had all of those concerns in March of 2020, the stock market sold off very sharply, and by April, May, the market was on its way to recovery, and we did eventually recover and get back to new all-time highs later that year. What's so interesting about this one is that this year we had a very similar story. We had a market that was impacted by news. The stock market sold off very, very sharply, but within an incredibly short period of time, all of those losses were recovered. And we're now hitting all-time highs within a shorter period of time than we had during the COVID pullback. Fascinating. You would not know today that we had such fear and concern just a mere 3 months ago. And yet, we're sitting at all-time market highs. So as I think through what happened over the past 6 months, I do want to give us maybe a couple lessons, a takeaway or 2 or 5 for us to consider when we're thinking about what's happened so far. What are the lessons we can learn from this first 6 months? The first thing is fear and uncertainty are normal. Let that sink in for a minute. It's normal to feel uncertain. It's normal to have fears about the future. And yet those fears really have a really profound impact on our confidence in the market, but we're never going to have enough information, never going to have enough confidence to invest as freely as perhaps we'd like. But we still have to invest in spite of uncertainties. So don't wait for the removal of fear and uncertainty to do the thing that you know you must do, to stay invested, to start investing. The second lesson is that conventional knowledge does not always work out. Remember I told you, well, we've got concerns in the Middle East. We just bombed Iran, for crying out loud, and everyone, me included, would have expected the price of oil to go up. What happened? The price of oil went down. Because not because of the bombing itself, but because of all of the things that came around the bombing and the negotiations that then happened, which allowed for cooler heads to prevail and for the world to realize maybe we're not heading directly into World War III. Pretty interesting. Conventional knowledge does not always work out. Number 3. Remaining diversified and sticking to your risk plan is always a good idea when facing the unexpected. So rather than allowing the fear and uncertainty to drive your decisions to pull back on risk or to go into cash or to try to market time, allow the diversification and the risk plan to do its job. And again, thank you for so many of you who are working with us here at the Life Group to help you craft and implement and hold to that risk plan through these uncertain times. It's a pleasure to be able to do this with you. Number 4, the market impact of news-driven market events typically resolve in the primary directive of the market within a few months. What does that mean? Speak English, Tim. I'm sorry. If the market is generally moving in an upwards trajectory and then we have a shock news story, this happened when we had the U.S. debt downgraded for the first time in history back in the teens. We looked at this and we said, sit tight. This is a news-driven market event. There's nothing fundamentally that has changed to Walmart or Target or Amazon. All of these companies are still going to be in business doing what they do next week, next month, and next year, regardless of the debt downgrade for America. And what happened within 3 months, the market was going down, turned around, came back, and was moving back into the primary direction. It was going up, dropped, and now it's going up again. Inversely, if we're in a downward trajectory and we have a temporary news blip and the market tends to jump up a little bit, again, if it's just all about news, nothing fundamentally about the economy has changed, then we would assume that within a couple months or a couple weeks, and typically in a downturn, we're going to resort to going back in a southerly direction. So the news-driven market event typically resolves itself in the primary direction within a short period of time. Why is that important? When we have things that are shocking and surprising, don't allow that to alter or fundamentally change your investment strategy, because these are news-driven rather than fundamental-driven changes. They don't last. All right. The last one is maybe an obvious one, but one's political views have a greater impact on how you feel about the markets and the economy than almost any other factor. To the best of our ability, to the best of your ability and my ability, we must remain objective when we look at the data and try to have a sober, realistic look at the markets and the economy and try to keep our political biases out of our views. I have to admit, I'm not immune from this. I have very strong political leanings, and I don't want to allow those glasses, those rose-colored glasses or dark-colored glasses, to change the way I look at what's actually really happening within our accounts, within our economy, and within our client relationships. All right, those are the lessons from 2025, the first 6 months. Let's change gears for a moment and let's talk about this big, beautiful bill, that's what they call it, from Donald Trump that was signed into law on July 4th. There are a number of things that I think are really important for you to be aware of as an investor. Number one, there is an extension to the Trump era tax cuts. So the tax bracket was set to revert to the old Obama era tax code starting January 1st of 2026. Now we have that extended for at least through 2029. So we have a nice extension to those tax rates. I personally would have preferred that would have been made permanent. It's not what happened. It's not what they were able to get done. I'm grateful for at least a reprieve on these tax era changes. Okay, one side note here. For investors, especially those who have large IRA dollars, this gives us another several years to calculate, to consider doing Roth conversions. When we do a Roth conversion, we take money that's never been taxed and we put it into a tax-free account. In order to do that, we have to realize some taxes on that distribution. If the tax rates were going to go up in 2026, that means the only time you have to do that conversion is now. I still want you to do it now, but I would say we now have a longer period of time in which we can do those conversions and pay a lower tax rate than maybe we will pay in the future. So bear that in mind. That's one possible benefit that you can apply to this particular piece. Another one that many of my clients are very interested in is what's going on with Trump's promise to not tax Social Security. Can he just change the law entirely so that Social Security is not taxable? Well, that's actually not what he's done. What he's done is he's offered a $6,000 for a single individual, $12,000 for a married couple, extra deduction to offset Social Security taxation. And there is an income range in which this is effective. So it's not exactly like Social Security is not taxable, but they do allow you to deduct it from your income so that it's not going to cause some taxation. Again, this is not everything. This is not going to remove all taxation from Social Security, but it will be a helpful benefit. So this is effective for individuals who earn less than $75,000 or married couples who earn less than $150,000. And this is based on modified adjusted gross income. We'll probably get into more of the detail about this provision later on in this year as more of this gets worked out and we see how it's going to flesh out in our tax code. The third thing I'd say is really important is that the state and local income or state and local tax deduction, the SALT deduction, was capped at $10,000. This year, it's for the next several years will be increased to $40,000. Again, there's an income cap on that. $250,000 for an individual, $500 for a married couple. And once you're over $500, it decreases from $40 eventually down to $10. So it's not like it's a cliff. It's either $40 or it's $10. The other thing, we have the no tax on tips. That's great. It's actually up to $25,000, and it's only for certain industries or certain employees or workers in certain industries. And some of that's vague right now. We still have to find out what exact industries those are going to be. It's likely going to include people in the food industry, in the hotel and hospitality industry, but where exactly is that going to land for everyone else? Again, that is still yet to be determined. No tax on overtime. This one's a really interesting one. So you would think if I work 40 hours and then I'm working extra 10, now I'm up to 50 hours, I'm only going to be taxed on 40 hours. No, that's not what the law provides. It actually says that if you earn $20 an hour and then you get some overtime wages, and during the overtime you get that extra 10, the 1.5 times pay, only that extra 10 is subject to no tax. And it's provided to you as somewhat of a deduction on the tax return. So that's one thing to just be aware of. That is also income capped to $150,000 for an individual, $300,000 for a married couple. That's the income cap at which you can get the no tax on overtime. There's also a no tax on car loan interest. This is one that I have very mixed feelings about. In fact, more not positive feelings about than positive. We're not a big fan of car loans here. I don't want people to go out and get a car loan because they think that they can get it interest deducted on their tax return. It's a bad financial decision whether or not you can deduct the interest. It's still a bad decision. But interest rates are high and car loans are very problematic, very expensive. Therefore, they're offering to have a deduction only on American manufactured vehicles. So if you buy a vehicle made in Germany or in Japan, those vehicles are not going to get that credit or that deduction for your interest expense. That interest expense, by the way, is only up to $1,000. Now, if you've stuck with me so far, we've got 3 more things, and the last 2 are really, really big. The one I'll do before I get to that is the Trump account, which is this new $1,000 account for babies born in America between 2025 and I think 2029. This law says that you can fund an account for $1,000. Parents can contribute up to $5,000. So the government puts in $1,000, parents puts in another $5,000 for that child. Every single year, the parents can put that money in. And once the child is 18, they can use it for college, for trade school. They can use it to buy a home. They can use it for a number of qualified expenses. It's a pretty good thing in the sense that it's invested in the market. It's not just based in cash. It's going to be, I think, an S&P 500 index fund. I don't know if that's something that financial advisors are going to be able to offer and work with. If you have questions about that, I have no idea today. I'll probably find out if that's something that's within our purview or not within our purview over the next few months. So bear with us as we try to figure out exactly how this law is going to work out in practical living. You would think that the government would tell people about these things. No, we really don't know yet. And then there's some hoops you got to jump through in order to even get that Trump account for your kids or your grandkids. All right. The last 2, the qualified business income deduction. This is for individuals who own LLCs and S Corps. You can deduct in the past 20% of that income from your taxable income. It's a very nice tax break. It was extended and increased. It's now up to 23% of your income can be deducted. So for those of you who are business owners, this is a very, very nice deduction for what you're doing. And the last one is also for business owners, but this is going to have an impact on all of our economy and so much of what's happening here in America for job creation. It's the 100% bonus depreciation. This sounds like kind of some archaic tax law. But what this means is that businesses can create, build, fund the expansion of their facilities here in America and be able to deduct 100% of that expense within 1 year, reducing taxes. This is a huge incentive for businesses to bring work, factories, facilities back to America, to employ more Americans, and to be able to get a tax deduction in the process. So it sounds like this is just a tax break for billionaires. It is not. This is a significant way of juicing our economy and helping people like you and like me who will benefit from all of these businesses and jobs that do come back here into America. Now, we still have a job deficit. We need more people to come back into the workforce. We have too many people sitting on the sidelines. This is one of the many things that the Trump tax bill is trying to do to help strengthen and build our economy. So I'm really encouraged by that. I hope you're encouraged by that. There's a lot here. I've just scratched the surface. So if you have more questions about these particular things, by all means, shoot me an email. You can reach out to us at thelifegroup.org. You can make a comment. There's a contact us page, and you can fill out information with questions that you may have or things that you want to know about how this tax bill may impact you. I know today's been a much longer video than normal. Thank you for sticking with me. Let me wrap this up by sharing one final verse before we go. That's from Matthew 25:14 through 30. Again, a truncated version is, "For to everyone who has, more will be given. But to the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." It's kind of funny that we're talking about this verse in the light of tax changes and all of those things. You might think, well, this sounds like taking from the poor and giving to the rich, some kind of reverse Robin Hood. Is that what God is talking about here? And the answer is no. No, he's talking about you and me, our own personal stewardship, our wisdom being applied to our personal finances, and our everything that God's entrusted to us, not just our finances, our relationships, our time, our energy, to those who have and who have been doing well with what God has given them. They're being deemed faithful, and God will bless them. But to those who are not being faithful with what God has entrusted to them, what he has given, he may take away. So my brothers and sisters, as we look at all of what's happened so far this year, if we looked at all that's happened with this big tax bill that's come through over the last week, be faithful where you are. Don't worry about what's happening in Washington. Don't worry what's happening in the Middle East. Right now, be faithful where you are. That right now, that is what God requires of you. And as you're faithful, he will certainly bless. Thank you. Until next week, take care, God bless, and be safe in the markets.
The topics discussed in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations. Investing and investment strategies involve risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Securities and advisory services are offered through Genius Wealth Management, member FINRA and SIPC.